to begin with, peak performance, where did the idea all start?
The idea started at the University of Waikato Management School in New Zealand, where I teach as a professor in human resource management, and the dean of the school, Mike Pratt, and the director of executive education, Dr. Ed Weems. We were kind of mushing around to try and find a new way to teach executive MBA students something new, and we realized that there wasn't much there. We wanted something different. At the same time, we hooked in with Kevin Roberts, who's currently the worldwide CEO of Saatchi & Saatchi, and he was also looking for a better way for his organization. And given that we were all sports nuts, we reasoned that given that the competition in sport is razor sharp, any team rather, that had sustained what we call peak performance over a long period of time would likely have an organization which would exhibit similar characteristics, and we wanted to find out what those characteristics were. So that's what led us on the odyssey to look at the top 10 sport organizations in the world. In doing that, we decided the criteria was not championship wins. The default position in sport actually is that you lose, not that you win. Only one team can actually ultimately win. So we felt that long-term sustained contention would define the nature of what we call PPOs, peak performing organizations. And we scoured the world for examples of this, and strangely enough, there are not very many. There are a few that shine brightly. In soccer, you get Barca or Juve or the Real Madrid, but very few go the distance. And so that was the main criteria, sustained contention over a period of time.
Now, you mentioned the word team, but you haven't necessarily stuck to team sports. I mean, motor racing, for instance, although you've looked at the Williams team, we are talking about individuals they rely on for their success.
That was the one outlier, and although it's true that a great driver such as Ayrton Senna, who tragically died in a Williams car, of course, and Michael Schumacher can make a difference, what you find out very quickly in Formula One is that the car is the star, and as long as the driver can deal with an F1 car, then they tend to be taken, if not out of the equation, but they tend not to be treated as the be-all and end-all. The team that surrounds the car, the engineers and the scientists and the mechanics, they are in a sense the team by proxy, as if you wanted to compare them to other sporting codes.
So did you find this as a common theme throughout? I mean, the sports covered are numerous: netball, cricket, football, motor racing, women's hockey, rugby, American football. Did you find that the common theme was the fact that everything is well organized, everything is well run, or is that not always the case?
Well, it's interesting, when we set out on this journey, we had no idea what we were going to find, and we're very pleased that we did find a significant number of commonalities, and that we call PPO theory, or peak performing organization theory. And if people have the chance to buy the book, what they'll read are 10 stories, and we've deliberately told inspirational stories so that people can see what it's really like to work in these organizations. In case they didn't realize what the commonalities were by the time they finished the 10 chapters, then we have another chapter at the end which pulls it all together. So yes, indeed, there are a number of commonalities which we've theorized about, and for us, the key interest here is the extent to which sport organization can teach corporate things about the corporate world and how to sustain growth over a long period of time.
Did you find any resistance from the organizations in going in and having a peak, so to speak?
It's very interesting. We assumed, we kind of, when we sat around the table and said, well, let's go and visit these places, we kind of fell about laughing, saying, well, it's not a chance in a million we're going to get here. But the interesting thing is that if you take the Chicago Bulls, or if you take the San Francisco 49ers, Atlanta Braves, these are like massive sport franchises. I mean, people talk a lot about Manchester United, and that's all very interesting. But if you really want to look at big franchises, then you go to the North American ones. And we went to them and we spoke to them, and because mostly people wanted to talk to Michael Jordan and Steve Young and Greg Maddux, and I'm awfully sorry to make the inquiry because we guessed that you guys get these requests all the time, and the answer was no. We were the only people who had actually wanted to speak to the organizations. Everyone wants to talk to Mike and the rest of the guys on the teams. Once they allowed us in, it was them. Those are the people, the managers, who said, well, you actually do need to do the team because they're part of the organization. I well remember the Atlanta Braves. They said, well, you can do the organization, but you're going to have to do spring training as well. Anyone who knows anything about baseball knows that that's very much rites of passage in American life. And so, yeah, we did spring training in Florida, and it was pretty cool.
Now, money dominates sport these days at the highest level at any rate. But again, you haven't just gone for big money sports, have you? As I mentioned earlier, we have netball in here, Netball Australia. Or is that big money?
No, it's not big money at all. In fact, money is not the key factor. If you take and I have to mention this as a New Zealander now, that the Team New Zealand has just retained the America's Cup, first country to do that outside the US, beat Prada 5-0. The amount of money that Team New Zealand had to throw at their boat was about 30 million. Prada had 100 million. If you look at Williams Formula One, Williams that have dominated Formula One for 20 years in terms of sustained contention, have had nothing like the resources of Ferrari. Take Netball Australia or Women's Hockey Australia, two of our peak performing organisations in every sense of the word. They slide by on just a few million. But if you look at Netball Australia, they have 385,000 registered players, all linked in at the local, area, state, and through to the national level. In terms of an organisation, it's a monster. It's huge. It's bigger than General Motors, for heaven's sake. And so there's a lot of organisational lessons that you can get from a sport like netball as soon as you start looking around to see what the organisation actually does do and what it achieves.
Yes, I mean, two of the sports that have been in the public eye recently in this country, we've had cricket, the recent unsuccessful tour of South Africa and then Zimbabwe, and also tennis, as to why we can't produce the goods. I mean, did you learn anything from that as to how sports go about producing peak performance in their individuals as well as in their businesses?
Yeah, well, our argument is that over the long period of time, players come and go. So actually, even though you get players of consummate ability, generally speaking, it can't be the players because they come and go. The organisational footprint is the actual key that provides the context for the individuals to excel. And over a period of time, that will get you in the end if you don't have your organisation right. If you take the All Blacks, they've got a 72% win record over 100 years. Now Sean Fitzpatrick and Jonah, and who we all know them very well, they're great players, but they weren't playing at the turn of the century. So you've got to understand that there's an organisational context here which makes a significant difference. The chapter we have on the Australian Cricket Board beautifully demonstrates how the ACB has assiduously built and created a future, how the dream of being at the centre of the Australian nation, the psyche of the Australian nation, is matched with their desire to be Test and World one-day champions. And also they know how to deliver their elite players, how to create and build their elite players right through from the school level through to the test level. And it's done assiduously, carefully. The focus is absolutely razor sharp on that. I see recently, of course, the ECB contracting a dozen players, and I think it's a recognition, a move that you have to move the focus of the sport to some level. But it's a lot more complex than that, and it will take time. What we also found here is that it's not organisational steroids that makes the difference. It is the long haul, and that's a really important point for corporate, because you cannot be subjecting yourself always to the whims of short-term capital markets in order to try and turn a buck. You've really got to take it for the long haul, and that's one of the key lessons from sport to business.
Now, you use what I think is a key word there in that answer, desire. I often wonder if in this country we have that desire to be the very best. And I don't mean in terms of individuals, but sometimes the organisations running them and the nation as a whole. Yes, we moan about our lack of tennis success for 2 weeks in the year and then forget about it until the next crisis comes along. And the same with cricket. We wait for the next test to come along. I just wonder if the desire is there for us to be the best. Are we just good losers?
It's a tough question to answer. I think the desire is probably certainly it's almost certain it's going to be in the athletes and many of the administrators as well. What we have found in our PPO theory, peak performing organisation theory, is that the processes necessary to make it happen over a long term need to be in place, and that's where we hope we can make a contribution.
So hopefully, we hope that the right people read this book.
Absolutely. We hope that many people read the book. What we were also able to do is persuade the HarperCollins business to allow us to write a different business book that was based on inspirational stories rather than boring business jargon. We do have a theory chapter, as I said earlier, at the end of it. But
yes,
what we really wanted to do was to provide some inspirational stories that anyone can read. So that at the individual level right through to the CEO level, you've got a template which will enable people to find their own way, their own true path to greatness.
Yes, I mean, we must make it clear to people who are perhaps even remotely thinking about buying the book, you do not need a business head to read it. It is about sport.
Not at all. It's I wouldn't say it is about sport. That's for us is the point of departure. Our interest, of course, is the corporate world more broadly, and we think we have a different cut that's hitherto been developed, and that is that sport organisation can teach corporate. And we have a chapter in there on Procter & Gamble, which illustrates how PPO theory actually works. And we can also indicate that one of our authors, Kevin Roberts, the worldwide CEO of Saatchi & Saatchi, has been using PPO theory in his organisation for the last 2 or 3 years, and they've quadrupled their share price, so that's pretty cool.
Great. Clive, it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.